we strive to do business in the continent. So the biggest challenge that I've observed throughout the period that I've been in the States, the biggest challenge has always been that, especially in the southern part of the continent, we hardly do business, moving up the north of the continent. We hardly explore doing business in East Africa. We hardly explore doing business in West Africa. So this book is a good introduction into the continent, into what to expect into the continent, and what are the things that we need to look at. So part one of the book talks about why Africa and why now. Part two, how to win in Africa, and it sort of sets out about four chapters on how to win in Africa. So the first part of the book, I found it to be quite informative. So it runs a whole lot of steps in terms of what's happening in the continent, the positive things that are happening in the continent. For instance, they look at, for instance, $5.6 trillion projected in consumer and business spending by 2025, and 1.2 billion people with population expected to double by 2050, 11 million square miles of land, 3 times that of Europe, 400 companies with annual revenue of over 1 billion, 122 million active users of mobile financial services, 89 cities of over 1 million inhabitants by 2030, 54 countries expected to create the world's largest free trade area, and 2 times potential growth in manufacturing at 2025. So what the book does is it sort of opens up with, what to expect in the continent going forward, and what are the things, where are the opportunities that the continent presents. And part two of the book talks about, now that you understand where the opportunities are, and where the gaps are, and how to go about it. It then talks about understanding the landscape. How do you then go about coming up with those opportunities? Map your Africa strategy. And I love this part because it talks about how then do you conquer, or how then do you go about doing business in the continent. And it talks about precisely where to go. Do you go to which city to look at? And it talks about, capital cities, urbanization, people moving to capital cities. That's where you are likely to have opportunity. But also it talks about which models to adopt. And I love the fact that here I could get a sense. I mean, if you have read quite a lot of Leke theory of disruptive innovation, I could pick up quite a lot of, his theory of disruptive innovation. And here he talks about, and I think also, because I was reading another book, it talks about how not to copy and paste Silicon Valley models in Africa. Africa, we don't need the next Mark Zuckerberg. In Africa, we don't need the next Larry Page of Google. What in essence what it's saying is, Africa, we have got so many challenges, and we need a lot of entrepreneurs that are going to solve those challenges. And for me, I think that was quite amazing. But the fear of disruptive innovation talks precisely to that we need to disrupt the status quo. We need business models that are going to disrupt the status quo. And they have the pillars, right? They have the fact that you look at your pricing points, you look at, are you solving relevant problems? Are you solving agriculture? Are you solving health? Are you solving education? Are you solving food security? So are you solving the real problems that Africa faces? Because if you solve those problems, you've got a big market, right? And are you using technology and all these kind of things? So I found that to be quite, quite important. Building resilience for the long term. Again, how do you scale into the continent? Where do you start and how do you grow from one city, from one country to the next country, and on and on and on and on, and then unleash Africa's talent. Africa's got in fact, Africa has the biggest youth population in comparison to other continents in the world. And what does this mean? It means that young people energy, they've got a lot of energy in Africa in comparison to other countries. What does it also mean? It also means that we are going to have quite a lot of productivity. In other words, there's potential for productivity. So I sort of, laughed at that, and of course, do well by doing good. The last chapter talks about, once you understand what the opportunities are, once you understand how to go about winning in the continent, finish off by doing well, finish off by doing good, give back to the communities where you're operating in, sponsor, do a lot of giving back, social development programs where in your communities where you operate in. So I mean, that's the book in a nutshell. It's easy reading. I think it's an easy flow. Um, I'm not going to talk about what I struggled with in the book, but I think quite it's an easy read. A lot of stats. It's very rich in terms of stats, painting the picture of understanding the continent. It's using quite a lot of numbers, so it gives you a clear picture of what to deal with in the continent, but also it sort of gives you a clear indication of how to go about conquering or winning, as it says, in the continent. I have since shared with you some of the links, I think four links that Acha and Musta were talking at Gibbs, and they're talking about how to do business in the continent. Yeah, I thoroughly loved it. It was challenged once again, and yeah, I think we need to start looking at how we can actually do more business in the continent and not just focus on doing business just here at home, and start opening up to conquering other markets. There are opportunities, and I think also what stood out for me in this book, and it did a very good job. There's another book, I forgot the name, it was written by also a consultant from McKinsey. I'll get the name before we finish. She's a Chinese lady based in Africa, that's from McKinsey, and she also wrote, how the next big growth in the world is going to be in Africa. But how that growth is going to happen in Africa is through entrepreneurs establishing factories. And it talks about how Chinese entrepreneurs who are frustrated in China because of the rise in the wage bill in China are then looking for countries where there's a lower wage bill. And Africa is one of the continents that presents that opportunity where if you go to Lesotho, for instance, or Ethiopia or Nigeria, their wage bill is still low, and that is going to work in their advantage because if your wage bill is low, it means your input costs are low, which means you are then able to come up with products that are competitive when it comes to pricing, and then you are able to export to markets like like the US. And in fact, if you go to Lesotho now, there's quite a lot of Chinese factories in Lesotho that are doing jeans and all this other clothing apparel, and they're exporting those straight to the US, right? And she was saying that that model is how Africa is going to rise. So Africa is the next China if they adopt pretty much more or less the same strategy as China of manufacturing and mass. So Chinese see opportunities in Africa. Other nationalities from outside the continent will see Africa as a rising sun. I think it's important that as entrepreneurs, we also don't get or left behind when other countries are taking over. So thoroughly enjoyed the book. We definitely shall go back to it. It's a good one to have. That's my views. I'll express my reservations of the book, but let me hear others and how they found the book. I know Tulani, you say well you found it difficult to read. So maybe let's hear what your views are of the book.
Um, Not that it was difficult to read. It was readable. It's just that the flow for me was a bit of a challenge, and there's a lot of things that I've seen. The surprising thing is how they compare Africa to to European countries, how big Africa is. If you were to travel from south to, and they painted a very good picture for me. Then to me, I thought Africa, but when they painted it at the early chapters, it was, wow, that's how big, how Africa is. There's also about opportunities that are widely available in Africa, but the challenges, African challenges, it's amazing how they look at corruption, and including here in South Africa, how corruption uh, has painted Africa in general. And when they paint corruption here in South Africa, yeah, it's quite interesting how they painting it. What challenged me towards the last chapters was the lack of talent. Um, a lack of talent when they say that when they advertise a job positions, they struggle to find good talent, and that is a serious problem for them. And now I thought Lora could be filling that space where they're looking for a leadership qualities, and they find that most African countries don't have the right skills or the right how do I call it, institution that will supply that good quality education. So all of those things got me thinking. There's African challenges where you have to deal with government issues, where politics play a big role in how you conduct business. If you are a person like me who tends to ignore politics, you're not going to survive. You have to consider politics whenever you do business in Africa. The other thing that they mention is that as a business, whenever you see a challenge within that country, you need to pitch in, solve that problem for the country. That creates a relationship between you and the country. It doesn't show that you just here to take the profits and go. People who, or companies who come from other countries try and do that, quickly they realize that doing business in Africa is not easy, and they fail. But those who have a different mindset, that they want to improve and solve problems that are there, they tend to grow their business, and then their business thrive. And the only problem that comes is with uh, skills, good quality skills. What I was reading last night, when they say that the people want to work, but they don't have the right talent or skills. That's a serious challenge. Sometimes they said if they need an executive, he or she must come from outside, because Africa doesn't have that capacity for that type of leadership. Yes, so there's all of those things. Not that it wasn't good, it has helped me to have a much bigger picture when it comes to doing business in Africa. The only thing is just that it wasn't that easily flowing. I have been reading, and yeah, that's that, and that's my view so far.
Okay.
Later, I'll come in with my critique.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Hilary. Dorcas? Dorcas?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm here. Sorry.
Yes.
Um.
Okay.
Okay. I found the book easy to read because I like that they use a case study type of approach in the writing, where they look at specific cases. For me, that makes it easy because it becomes a story that I can follow. And one thing I picked up in the book, well, it was surprising when they asked how many companies do you think make, when they told us about the 400 companies in Africa that make more than 10 billion. It was very surprising because we always see that bleak picture about our continent, but the book brings hope, and it gives us, it says to you, be optimistic, look for a better view of Africa. One thing I picked up in the book that came up in most of the pages was all the companies that managed to succeed had a long-term vision. They were not short-term. So that was one word I kept underlining. vision future. And the second thing was meeting the needs of the local community. There's a part where they were talking about the local. There's a part where they talked about local content. So as a business, if you come and want to do one size fits all, it's not gonna work because we have 54 countries and each of them are unique. In the 54 countries, there are different regions. So that's one thing they emphasize a lot. And so I also jotted down relevance, which comes back to the local context. And one word that came up again, also, they didn't mention it as is, but resilience. And you could think of agility of all those companies. And the one thing that also worked with the companies that they pulled out, if you are in one country and there's a shock, an economic shock in that country, you won't survive. But being in multiple countries and there's a shock in a few of the countries you are in, it sort of gives you a buffer to still survive. So diversifying is important. And as entrepreneurs in Africa, that's one thing that they put out in the book, that you need to be in different places so that you also able to get that buffer if things go wrong, because we do know other things go wrong. But very interestingly was that even in the countries where there were conflicts, some companies still managed to survive, like SAB, Coca-Cola. So it was the resilience, it was also the long-term view. And that was one thing that always came up: diversification, local context. And the last part of the book, before they talked about doing good, the part about women, I think, well, it's natural that I'll be biased. It was the third part of the book. And I hope, where are we now, 2020, when they release another one, maybe a second part of it, the story would have changed. We are naturals, and hopefully that is seen, and the status changes. It's said that women are still not really in top positions, top management or executive positions. We hope, as more entrepreneurs start up and the ones that are already existing grow, they will pull us in the train so that we drive the train with them. For me, it was an easy read. I think the stories make sense when you put a story to something. When you put a story or a brand to the chapter, it's easy to follow. It's easy to, because they always put a company, then they give you the background, then they talk about what happened for them to succeed. That was good for me. There were companies I would have hoped to see, but I guess there's a reason why they didn't include them. Technology also came up, which means there's no way around it. To survive, you need to embrace technology. You need to be digitized, and that's the one thing they kept pulling up. And we can't not use this word: innovation. The survivors had to be innovative. So that's one thing that you have to be. If you come to Africa, you must be innovative. You must be relevant. And yeah, that was some of the notes I made. I kept underlining and circling, yeah, but that's just in a nutshell how I found the book. But the intro was very good to say, this is what's happening in the country. You didn't know this, but this is what we are telling you. This is how much money is being made, and it means there's potential. But the question is there willingness to use that potential, or will it be only your Chinas who will be setting up in Africa, or are we also going to be part of that? So I think, yeah, that's that from my side.
Awesome. Thank you, Dorcas. We'll come back to those other case studies that we would have liked to see. Mr. Manpiswan.
Hey, gosh.
How are you, man?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm just a bit tired. I was driving back. There was quite a bit of traffic at Kwatema, so that's why I
Uh,
got delayed.
Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
but all good, all good. Otherwise, thanks for the share. I really enjoyed the book. I think I read the book. This is the fastest book I've read this year, considering my standard for.
Okay.
So, hmm? No, I enjoyed the book. That for me, the tempo was high. Of which I enjoyed that there was a lot of data. I mean, obviously, what they did was to focus on the positive,
Mm,
of which you can choose to focus on the negative as well. But they chose to create a hope and to create a better, even how they look at the data, as Tulani said, the way they do the map data, is to line up things to say, let's go forward. Of which for me, I think if we are gonna go to the moon, then there has to be a decision that there is benefits of going to the moon, and we must create the data around going to the moon. Otherwise, if we don't, then it's not going to happen. But the key thing for me, and uh, Dorcas spoke briefly now at the end about innovation, it's the aspect of, and Tulani touched briefly on it in terms of the African challenges. And I want to underscore that they're not African challenges. They are challenges when you are launching an economy. Infrastructures are not there because the economy is at an immature state. Things are still fragmented and stuff like that. But one of the things, and you touched briefly on Roche earlier on, the linkage between this book and the theory of disruptive innovation, particularly the notion of having an integrated business model in the beginning, where what is not available in the country, you internalize as part of your capacity. That's what the Noodle Company did. Ifosa has spoken a lot about that particular company in a lot of his write-up. Then the other one is also the oil company, Dangote, has followed the same approach. And I think that is appearing. I mean, it was looked at already previously by Christensen and them from a theory point of view. What I love this book is that it offers the practice part to say, yes, indeed, if you are to exceed in an economy that doesn't have the infrastructure, you have to own that infrastructure that you need to make sure that you deliver the resources, inputs of your business into your yard, and to make sure that you are able to take your products from your yard to your customers. But obviously, those companies are big and they have the resources. If we talk about it from a Lora point of view, where we are engaging emerging entrepreneurs, or even those who are still in their workspace and trying to transition, obviously they don't have the resources to go and own up, key sections of the value chain. And for me, one of the things I've always underscored as part of the lecturing of innovation is the collaboration aspect. How do you make sure that some of these infrastructural gaps that exist, that you then own them as a collective and then go ahead and be able to execute? Because obviously your balance sheet does not allow you to be able to do that. And for me, that's the biggest takeaway and the reminder, that you're gonna have to do that. The last thing, which is what SAB followed, is you're gonna have to explore different approaches from a strategic point of view. When you start a company, you might say, I don't want to do mergers and acquisition. But you realize that, as much as I don't want to do mergers and acquisition, but mergers and acquisition is what is going to work if I'm going to be aggressive and drive my strategy forward. And I think for me, the important part here is when we start our enterprises, there's always a view of how we want things to be. But the question is, how well does that view create an advantage in the market? Or are we just going to be fixated on our view for as long as possible while the market is demanding a different approach? And I think what SAB showed is that they could behave in, I think SAB and Coca-Cola, they don't use the same strategy in different areas. They always study the area. So when they study the market, they're not studying the African market, they are studying the actual localized ecosystem, and then be able to say, what does this ecosystem need? And do I need to have a partnership with a logistic company if I'm able to do this? And I think for me, that's a big lesson in terms of how we can align around that, to say, I have a strategy, but I have to be willing to adopt new and different strategies that I didn't even think about in the beginning, because at the end of the day, strategy is about creating an advantage. And if what you have put as a strategy doesn't create the advantage for you, you actually have to abandon it. And you can't just hold on to it to say, we want to do this. And a very good example, I know there's enough debate about the democratic transition of South Africa. The ANC had a game plan of, here's how we are going to take over power. But it came to a point where you realize the game plan is not what is going to work. Something different might allow us to still take power. And from a leadership point of view, the question is, do you have the strategic flexibility, to do the necessary change management and then adopt a different way? But overall, for me, the book really, emphasized more on the other books I've read. And for the places where I've traveled, I've really just enjoyed hearing about that. The stuff's happening in Ethiopia. I learned about it in a policy conference not long ago, where one of the guys, I think he's the advisor to the minister, he's doing those industrial parks. So it was quite interesting to also hear that, it is indeed taken forward. But it encouraged me as well more to say, hey, let's go ahead and travel the continent, because if you're not there and seeing some of these things, it's difficult to comprehend them, and stuff like that. But I think it puts a positive light in the spin of things and widens the opportunities, for those who want to go there and build. So I really enjoyed it, to be honest. And I'm reading Closing the Gap now by Prof. Marwara, and he's looking at it from a 4R point of view, touching more on South Africa, but also looking at what's happening in the continent. So quite a nice connectivity around that as well. But great book. And I'm so glad I read it, because I bought this book last year, Feb, but I never read it. I kept on finding other books. So when this came about, I jumped in. I'm so glad I went through it. I think the guys did a really good job on the book. And yeah, thanks, Roj, for putting it forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Rendani. So we'll come back to you also. Anyone else who wants to contribute? Shama, welcome. I don't know if you've read the book. I don't know if you have the book. Any inputs from anyone else, except the ones that have already spoken? TJ?
Hi, Dr. Roche.
Yes,
Shama.
yes.
No, I haven't read the book. I listen to book reviews first before I read the books. So I'll go and buy it after this.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Thanks. TJ?
No, I've got the book. I'm going to start reading today.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's fine. Any other views? Auntie Alice, you are good. You're not leaving you behind. You can move on, right? Okay, Auntie Alice is shy tonight. Okay, that's fine. So I'm just gonna shoot some questions before we get to before we go. I mean, and feel free to jump in. I mean, when you read the book, when you got the book, what was your initial reaction to the book? Knowing what, was it a paradigm shift to you? When you got the book, did it hook you immediately? I know Rendani says it was like he was just hooked, but or did it take you some time to get into the book? I know, for instance, with me, I got hooked immediately. For me, I love numbers. I love stats. I mean, there are a while back, I used to do some presentations with numbers and graphs. So for me, the first chapter with the numbers, it just hooked me immediately. I got a bit, at some point, the pace was a bit slow, but then when we got to the innovation part, it picked up until right to the end. So I think I must have read this book within 4 or 5 days. That's how hooked I was. Maybe not 4 or 5 days consecutively, but every time I picked up the book, I think I must have spent 4 days or 5 days of sittings of reading. So that's how hooked I was. The first chapter really, it just took me off. I was just like hooked, and then also towards the end also. So initial reactions to the book. Anyone?
For me, it's a little bit opposite because the beginning was a bit slow for me to get the grip going. However, in the middle and towards the end, that's where I was mostly interested in the book. At first, it took me a while to get on it. I suppose maybe being opposite to you with graphs and numbers. So
But
yeah.
what were your expectations to that? I know you don't read the book by its cover, but what were your expectations? Did you have
Well,
expectations of the book? Were those expectations met, exceeded, or it just you had expectations of going north, the book went south?
I didn't have much expectations. I was open. I just wanted to see how business is like out there. That was the only thing that I wanted to know, how to do business out there. For some of us who haven't traveled outside South Africa, we tend to think, huh, I wonder. But how they explain how business is done in other countries, at least it gives some of us a little bit of an idea what to expect as soon as you tap into those markets. But the other thing, maybe expectation is to does one get into the African market? I'm thinking you can't just go and just land there. How do you start?
Yeah.
You know, and I see most of the trainings they send people here in South Africa to come and train. There's a number of big South African companies that have been mentioned, a few from other places. So probably expectation was that I would get ideas on how to tap into the African market.
Okay. And what
But
is the
yeah, but the start was a bit slow for me to get to answer that answer for me. And towards the end, middle and towards the end, it was a bit, it started flowing. I got the book a bit late, I think a week or two after we agreed that we're going to read. So if I got it on time, I would have finished on time, I suppose.
all right?
But yeah, that's me.
Okay. Nice. So you haven't been outside of the country.
No, that's a thing. I've been to Swaziland. That's a but for Swaziland and Lesotho are within South Africa.
Okay. All right. No,
Yeah, so I need to go.
so so for you, those are not like foreign countries. They are, provinces of South Africa.
Swaziland and Lesotho, I think they are provinces. Yeah.
Botswana must not hear you say that. Shama, he's almost saying Botswana is also
No,
another
I'm
province.
saying Lesotho, not Botswana.
No, he can't. He can't even. This is a whole entire country, Tulani, okay?
But Lesotho,
Botswana.
Botswana.
yeah, Botswana, I understand. I'm saying Lesotho.
Oh,
Lesotho
what's
is
the
within South
yeah.
Africa.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. No, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, guys, first impressions of the book. You've got the book. I said, guys, this is our next read. Would you have picked this up if it was not part of this read?
Well, the word revolution always makes you wonder, okay, what are we revolutionizing now?
Okay.
So I would have picked it up, maybe Africa's business revolution, not that But the second part, how to succeed in the world's next big growth market. The question was for me, we are in deep trouble.
Okay.
What are the authors recommending, suggesting? So that was the first thing to say, okay, let's hear what are they saying. What is the hope they are giving? That was the curiosity to say, oh, okay, they are proposing a solution possibly. And yeah, because of that sub part of the title, I would have taken it had it not been part of the review. So that was the first impression about it. What is the answer they are possibly what is the actually doable answer they're proposing?
Okay. So were you hooked? First chapter you went in, or were you like, oh my word, what's happening here? You know, what did I put myself into? Or were you like, wow, this is quite amazing, you know?
I go through the table of contents, then I see which chapter
Okay.
talks to me, then I go to that chapter, then I start from the beginning. So
Okay.
I sort of go to the end, then go back to the front, or see in between what talks to me. And it was okay because the stories were not building up. If it was a storybook from chapter 1 to 10, it wouldn't have made sense. But
Okay.
at least each part is on its own. So I go to the chapter that talks first. That sings the loudest song. Then I start.
Oh, well, okay.
I know.
I'm hearing this for the first time. I mean, like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's what I do with books. And yeah.
Okay. Randani, do you do that? I know you read quite a lot of books. I mean, I think it's like cheating. I mean, your first impression of the book, but also, I mean, that's what Doc has just said now. Is it how you approach?
Well, I think probably a while ago when I started reading, I'll do that. I think I did that for my first 2 tries of Long Walk to Freedom. But nowadays, I take a book, chapter 1 to the last chapter. I don't think of that anymore. In terms of first
impression.
Yeah, the first impression. So I think for me, and maybe that's part of. I think maybe I had a little bit of what Shamai said. I mean, the book was highly recommended, but maybe the revolution part also did put me off a bit. But when I opened the book, for me, as I said, the tempo, the way the data was visualized from day one, I mean, from the first chapter, was in a manner that is forward-looking. And it is not to say, there isn't other data, but there's every book has a has a message it wants to put forward. I remember when after Malcolm Gladwell released the David and Goliath book, in one of the podcasts or interview, they asked him, they're like, no, but you only chose the data that support your theory. He's like, what else was I supposed to do? You must say, did you want me to write another book? So and I think, I mean, writing is the same thing even with Marora's book now on Closing the Gap. I mean, you must choose the angle that you want, and you must go select the data. It's part of the art, the data that speaks to what you want to do, and then you put on the table. If somebody else wants to throw another data, they must do the same and put on the table. But because you must have another book, because you want to create a certain narrative, which, if you not try to write everything, I think it becomes very difficult. So for me, the tempo, of the book, was quite proper. I mean, in the beginning, one could have gotten worried that this thing would be, defining the continent as one. But I think as they went through the different chapters, they actually showcased that, the different strategies and different approaches by different companies, And so what, they didn't give you one answer. They gave us an envelope, which you're going to have to choose and test what works for you, which, perhaps one might argue, that's a critic of the book, that they didn't give a silver bullet, but at the same time, another person might argue that that's actually a good thing, that they give you options. You must choose and try the option based on your size, on your whatever thing. So it's a good and a bad thing at the same time. For those who want a direct answer, they don't have a direct answer. For those who want to explore, then they have the option for the exploration.
All right. Second last question before we get to reservations. I mean, what are your favorite quotes or favorite passages in the book that when you read that and you're like, this is what I was looking for, and or this is what I was waiting for, in the book. What really, which chapter or which quote really stood out for you, and you underlined and you wrote there, this is amazing. Which quote or chapter stood out for you? I mean, for me, this book I highlight quite a lot. So I write quite a lot on my book. That's why I don't lend out my book, because I write notes on my book. So there's quite a lot of things that I highlighted. But anyone who somehow um, the chapter that really stood out for you, and what in that chapter really stood out for you. I think for me, the chapter that stood out for me was innovate your business model. I think for me that talks to, and this is a message that we have been trying, to carry out there as part of the Lora, to say we need to be innovative, but also come up with innovative business models. And when I read, chapter 4, innovate your business model, and for me, things like affordability came out very strong. We need to come up with products that are affordable to the millions of our people, and sort of try and stop with this elitism approach to business. There's very few elites in the continent. There's massive millions and millions of people at the bottom of the pyramid. And if you are to come up with disruptive, innovative models, you need to come up with models that are going to talk to the millions of the people at the bottom of the pyramid. So for me, like you and I, I've read this thing, I've read the research, I've done some work, but it's so amazing how this formula, it doesn't change, it remains constant, it remains irrespective of which book you read, this formula of disruptive innovation, affordability, addressing a social issue, scalability. Those for me are the things that, but just also how the case studies of the bank, I think it was in Tanzania, of how the guy could not open up a bank because he didn't have the funding, and he decided to partner with retail shops. Pretty much like what we do with ShopRite checkout, where you deposit and withdraw money at the till. And that model for me is something that we really, really need in the continent. And then if you talk about the noodles, Indomie noodles in Nigeria, also, right? There's no infrastructure in the continent. If you're going to do business in the continent, you need to be prepared to build the infrastructure. You need to be prepared to go that extra mile. If there's no electricity, you might have to build a power station. You might have to put up some infrastructure to supply yourself with electricity, supply yourself with water, and all these other infrastructures that you need to operate. But I love the fact that it opens up. I think in South Africa we feel spoiled because pretty much almost everything works here. Yes, occasionally we have blackouts and all this kind of things. In most of the continent up north, power cuts. When I was in Kenya at some point, it was normal. It was a daily occurrence, and it was normal. When we were in Tanzania, the same thing. So if you're going to operate in those spaces, be prepared to come up with your own infrastructure. So I think for me, chapter 4 really stood up to me. It's the one that is so colorful because I really wrote there. I highlighted quite a lot of paragraphs there. So I don't know which chapter, which quote stood out for you in the book.
Maybe I can go.
Yes, yes, Dorcas.
It was on page 128 when they were talking about Mkopa having installed solar power. There's a paragraph where a father talks about how their lives have changed. Their goats used to be eaten by hyenas. And the sentence that says, this was value added to their lives, he says, our lives have gotten much better. And if you are a company to bring that change to people, to the community, I think you hit the jackpot. You won't necessarily be able to measure that, but a message like this from a customer says, yes, I've arrived. Obviously, you still need to do more, but it basically says, yes, I hit the spot, because they can list to you how things changed when you, before you came in, what was, so it's a before and after story. And if the after story says there's a difference, then I think you got it right. Even when things get tough, this would be something that keeps you going to say, no, if I was doing something good for the people, then I must keep going. So that was one part of adding value. And I laughed when I saw this, but where Dangote's president was, Dangote's CEO was told by the president that I've never seen a fighter like you. I mean, getting a statement like that from a whole president, it means I know. In the boardroom on the phone, you were fighting, and they saw the holding on. They saw the resilience. So it means you fight. This is one thing that says you add value. You also fight for what you believe in. Like you always say in your quotes, remember why you started. So I think the remembering pushes you to be a fighter. So this was something very, very interesting to be told by a whole president of a country that I respect you. So I underlined that, and quite a few other things as well, because I kept highlighting, but I'll let the other colleagues give it a go. But value, fighting, two things that came up.
Okay, thanks, Dorcas. Anyone else?
So on my side, the book also highlighted how women leadership is lacking in the country. There's a number of quotes that were put in here. Pumzile Mlambo Ngoga also comments about that. Grasa Michelle comments about that. But they seem not to get it right. I'm not sure what needs to be done to get that part right, where women leadership is growing among African, and it has shown that where there's female leadership, there's more money that is spent towards the community. But where there's more men in leadership, that money is spent for themselves. It's somewhere in the last chapters. But what has caught me, the statement that talks to me, was when Nadia Fatah was saying that you can grow in your own country, but if one day you want to have a #1 position, you need to travel. So that statement is talking to me where, I need to travel. And she's one of the few female leaders that have been mentioned in the book. She's mentioned in early chapters and towards the end, chapter 8, this is on chapter 8. And it made me think that, we really need to do more in promoting women leadership in Africa. There's a graph that shows that at a particular stage, it was 17%. And when you look at the states now, it's -1. So that's how things are bad. A link between gender diversity and profit margin. So that is on page 173. It's shocking how those stats are showing how women leadership are representative in Africa.
In fact, there's a friend of mine, he did his PhD a couple of years ago. He finished 4 years ago, he wrote a research paper on women on JSE listed companies that have got more women on their board, and he sort of tracks the share price of those companies. And his findings are that listed companies that have got more women on their board, their share prices tend to steadily grow, right? It's not a spike type of a growth, but it's a steady growth. And he sort of says that if you want long-term sustainable growth in your share prices, have more women on your board. And I think what this here in 173 demonstrates that if you have more women on your board,
Yeah.
it shows on your return on investment. But I like on 172 at the bottom that quote, introducing more women at leadership level, introducing broader perspectives and new ways to manage problems. And I
Yeah.
think this, for me, this is common sense, but it sounds like for quite a lot of other entrepreneurs, they don't see it. But if you have a diverse workforce, chances of you appealing to a diverse customer base increases as well. But I mean, and this talks to not only women, but also, for instance, the issues of clicks, for instance, with the campaign. Classic example, that the people who are coming up with this campaign don't have representation in their team. And as a result, the outcomes that they come up with is always one-dimensional. So I think for me, that was quite interesting. Thanks for that, Siban. Yeah. Randani, what stood out for you? Please don't say innovation. Anything else? Pick up anything else.
I didn't particularly take the quote, but perhaps the thing from Dangote of diversification was quite key for me, because as it was mentioned earlier on, I can't remember if it was Dorcas or Shama about certain markets don't perform, but on aggregate you have the right performance at the end. So I think those choices of what to focus on and what not to focus on, that's important. The other aspect, which it's very important, and I think Dangote has done it, is the vertical and backward integration, where it's okay to import, but very quickly you must interrogate your numbers and start to say, how much can I make? And I think when I think about it from a South African perspective, and I was discussing this on Tuesday in a government interaction, and also linking it up to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, is we have to be pragmatic about it, right? Not all SMMEs are going to turn up and have the manufacturing capability. As an example, one has to go to a department and say, I've got 100 SMMEs. Let's select 10 through whatever approach. And out of that 10, have a 10 to 20 year roadmap where you say, here is the percentage of what you must integrate vertically and backward, so that we will start to increase the economic opportunities. Because when you talk about unemployment, largely in the continent, a large part of it is contributed by the lack of economic activities that takes place internally. The activities happen outside, or the intensive activities happen outside. So then you don't have scope to, that absorbs more people. So for me, that vertical integration work that Dangote, has done in his businesses, where he started by import and then start to move backward, is what you want to be able to do. But you need to have a starting point, because sometimes it might not be possible to. Well, it might not make business sense to build a thing from the start, but when you launch by import, and I've had this discussion with one of the former students from Botswana, about the renewable energy space. That yes, you can start by buying these things, but once you establish that there is a market, then very quickly you want to start establishing sections of that value chain. But the benefit of buying by import first is that it helps you to establish the market at a low cost. So you actually launch the business as a low cost business model. Then later on, you transition to intensify it. Because sometimes to go now and ask for money to build a facility, there isn't the money because we're not even sure if the market exists. And I think having that balance, where we don't settle for the import alone, because imports are risky. I mean, South Africa is in the same issue now, because I've just learned over the week yesterday when I met with one of my energy experts that Engine is closing down the refinery in Durban because they have another refinery now in Malaysia. So they will just convert it into a tank farm. Right? What that means, South Africa already imports 70% of the oil that it uses, and it already also imports some of the final products if we are not able to meet the demand. Right. So by closing another refinery, it means that you are continuously being dependent on geopolitics. I mean, it's a threat to your economy that a key input to the economy, such as energy, comes from outside. I mean, in food, you get shocked on things that we import. But it doesn't help to complain about everything. The question is, how do we target it? How do we go about in a targeted approach and start to resolve some of these issues and build the capability and then the confidence? So I like what Dangote is doing. And I mean, pray for him to live long. And, another 50 years, Nigeria is in a different landscape from now, being the powerhouse that we have been waiting for it to become.
Okay, all right. Well, I hope the slightly different view to that, but let's see. To Nigeria, not necessarily to Dangote, to Nigeria, but let's wrap up with reservations. What are your reservations about the book? What do you think could have been done better, slightly different? Or what? Maybe not reservations. What do you think are the blind spots to the book? Some of the things that you think the authors could, or things that you would have liked to see in the book. In closing, Kulani? Mr. Kunen?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just battling to get to the unmute button. I didn't have much expectation. However, as I'm reading, I'm thinking they could have done more research on female-led businesses or female who are in higher position. There should be more. It's just maybe they didn't do that much research when it comes to that. Yeah, that's one thing that came to mind. I had an open mind when I'm looking at the book. I was hoping that it will give me channels on how to get to the market, but I don't think it was their goal to put that into channels. But I'm interested, fascinated by what Rendane said when he said we import a lot of things. Please share so that we know what we can tackle as something that you can manufacture here. I was shocked a few weeks ago to hear that toothpicks are imported. I'm like, really? Toothpicks? No one is manufacturing toothpicks in South Africa. No one. So it's those things. You think it's small, but when I started researching, oh, okay, it's not that easy, but it's doable. It's doable. So Renani, please share. I would like to know what things to tackle moving forward in manufacturing or doing. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Also, jump in and also do my critic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was in engagement yesterday, and there's someone who's working on that data, because we touch on that thing as well as part of the commission. But the key number is that in 1994 in South Africa, manufacturing as a share of GDP was 25%. Today is 13%. So there's a capacity that has gone somewhere. So I'll share the data once it's available. The data is being pulled from States SA and the Reserve Bank. They have those balance of payments. You just need to know how to pull it. Yeah, it's part of your balance of payment statements. Yeah, so, but there's a guy who's a data scientist, he's in the department, he's pulling the data, and I'll start to look at it to also see how has the decline been in different sectors, because it's, as much as the combine has a curve, but one wants to see how that is impacted in different areas. Okay. I think for me, the one critic I've got on the book, so data gathered retrospectively or in hindsight, always share the beautiful stories, right? Because you are looking back and you are then able to say, here's what you think has worked and stuff like that. But the reality is that you are never told every single thing that has actually worked, because people don't remember everything that has actually worked. So I think from a book point of view, I think they could have done, better by adding some caution on the data that they presented so beautifully. So I think perhaps for me, from a risk point of view, to say, yes, this is what is being said, because it's always easy to write, backward, than going forward, because I mean, knowledge is highly tacit. Some of the things that happened that made things work are not captured 100%. And this is why it's important not to copy. Because what people tell you to copy, they're telling you a section because they only remember a section. So for me, I think in the later part of the book, they should have put some cautionary statements, about the weakness of their approach and the data that they've gathered and how they present it. Not to crash the book, but just to hold some horses, Because yes, I said they've been positive and that is fine, but I think perhaps if they've added some cautionary statement, it would have, just allowed people to pause as they come to the end of the book, so that they consider those things as well when they go and explore, instead of just following this as a Bible, which of course we know that we mustn't follow it as a Bible, but some people do. So I think that could have.
I think you're very kind, Randani. I struggled with the book because I have issues with one. I mean, Chimamanda talks about this one-dimensional single story, all rosy all the way. It's as if the authors don't trust us with the bad news that we can to balance the two. I struggle with just one dimensional. Of course, it is, they are trying to look at it from that perspective and paint this. I get more suspicious, actually, to say, are you saying there's nothing wrong to be cautious about? Really? Is it possible? I'm like, I'm not so sure. So I would double click on your necessities and just say, no. I think for me, it's a good story, but I don't think, I mean, it's not easy doing business in the continent. It's not easy. I mean, if you look at corruption, if you look at ease of doing business and all those, it's not easy. I mean, they make it sound like it's easy to do business. It's not easy, right? There's all this red tape, regulation, there's all these challenges. So when you read the book, and you don't know much about, you are likely to say, oh, wow, what am I still waiting for? I think for me, somehow, I would have wanted to say, if you are coming here, here are the things that you, as a chapter maybe, or things that you can research on your own. Be careful of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We suggest, if you go about it this way. So I think for me, that was a big caution to say, you're right. I mean, they say hindsight is 20/20 vision. When you look at, it's easier to connect the dots backwards, but not so easy to connect them forward. So yeah, I think for me, I was like, I cringed a bit to say, well, yeah, but anyway. But yeah, thanks for that, Rendani. Dorcas, as we wrap up, Dorcas.
I would have loved to hear about Capitec in the book. And there were two, there was a sentence, I'm trying to find it now, but they said we have land, we have climate, and I think we have water, something like that. We shouldn't be importing food. But when they say we have land, it's a story and a half, because trying to find land for farming is not easy. So they say we have these things, but how do we get them? It's a struggle. Otherwise, we'll leave that one. Then there was also a section about mining, unearthing Africa's potential. There's a sentence, it says, I'm going to read it, please. It says, a UK-based mining company, Gem Diamonds, announced that it had recovered the fifth largest diamond so far discovered, a 910 carat stone worth around $40 million from its Litsing mine in the southern African nation of Lesotho. This diamond now belongs to UK. This is very painful. And it means the other ones they're going to find belong to UK. This part about mining, well, they are talking about the potential, but I would have loved for them to talk about the problems, because I think we have issues in the mining sector. Mines are scaling down, and the community, where they are in the community, a lot is to be said. It would have been good if they could talk about the potential, but also the pitfalls that have happened, and the stories are repeating themselves. So if this future potential that they're going to unearth, how is it going to be done in the right way? If there are still resources. This was just one part of the section that I understood it, but I also didn't understand it, the potential they're talking about, but the challenges they were not also saying. Well, it's fine for countries to come and mine here, but it was a painful sentence. I was in Lesotho Ning Ning, and I thought, how? So there was this big diamond when I was here. But that was just some of the few things. And they said you need to find a way to sit at the big table of government. They made it sound very easy. But so those were just a few of the things. They must give me land, please. They must tell me where to get the land. For free, I don't want to list it for 30 years. I want it to be mine.
No, I hear. Okay. Are you good, Dorcas?
Yes.
Okay. I think just to add on that, and I think this is political, this is personal, knowing Acha and the other comrades, I think I agree with you, there could have been a couple more South African case studies. I felt that they mentioned SAB, but SAB is by the way, and SAB has done very well, not only in Africa, globally. MTN has done very well in the continent. Shoprite Checkers has done very well in the continent. I kind of felt that those stories are ignored. Acha is from Cameroon. Acha is from Cameroon or Ghana, one of the two. Mucha also, they're all West Africans. So the book tends to be more West African dimensional, add a bit of East, and just one speck of South SADC as a whole. There's very few. I know they mentioned, is it Malawi, I think? So somehow there is a reservation about reporting on South Africa. It's politics somehow. It's as if there are not good stories coming out of businesses. And if you look at most of the businesses that are taking place in the continent, there's a good representation of South Africa, good stories. I think SAB, the growth of SAB in the continent, in fact globally, it's a case study on its own, on how they bought other small brewers in the continent, Nigeria and all those things, to become the best, one of the biggest before their merger with ABN Bank. I think that's an amazing story to share. MTN, Shoprite, and all these things. So I was quite disappointed actually that there was very little stories that came from South Africa. And I think it's not because there are no stories, but I think there's other issues at play. But it's a topic for another time. But yeah, those are some of my reservations. Yeah. Any other comments as we close? Oh, and then the other thing, one last thing as well, that I picked up from the book before we close. It's a good book. It's a good book if you have a budget. You're a company that has got a budget that you can go and do all these things. Like you say, Dorcas, getting close to the seat with government in other countries, you really need to have a budget. You can't just as a startup entrepreneur go and say, I want to speak to the Minister of Trade, Peggy in Botswana. As a startup, that's not going to happen. You need to have you need to be down water to say, I want to invest, and then you'll have a table with the government. I felt it's a good book, it's an amazing book, but not for startups, for emerging growth companies that are ready to grow into the continent. I think it's you need to have a budget. You need to have contacts, to be able to do that. Startups, there's a way that you go about doing how you grow in the continent. You go via your regional your SADC, ECOWAS, COMENSA, and all these kind of things. You go through your embassies. You go through so there's a way that you go about which is not mentioned here, which is quite different. So here you need to be an international multinational from another continent wanting to get into the continent. This is perfect. Or you need to be a business that's growing, but you're looking for other markets. This is perfect. For startups, it's aspirational, it's perfect to sort of aspire, right? But yeah, but I think for me, it gives you an introduction into what the continent looks like. And guys, let's travel. Get into a bus. Rekunene, a bus to Habron is like $800. In fact, return $800. Luxury couch, TV, and everything. It's not that difficult.
What? 300 rands?
Yes, Rekunene, 800 rand return. Right? So it's not that difficult, guys. Let's travel. Let's. I mean, social media makes it easier for us to connect with people from other countries. Lora, we have students from Namibia, Botswana. Let's connect and let's go visit those people. Let's ask them to show us around. They come to South Africa quite a lot. They know what's happening here. Let's try and explore out there. So we must make it a standard thing at Lora where we actually have a field trip to another country. So that's why something that I've been thinking about. All right, last comments, Ntulani.
I'm going to
Yeah,
visit. Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying Tulani. Tulani.
Okay,
It sounds the same.
I'll come to you, Tulani, Mr. Makat.
no, thanks for the invite. Look, I haven't read the book, but I am a reader, so I'm looking forward to the next session, adding my inputs and whatnot. But it sounds like a really good book. Maybe I should get it. But thanks for having me. Some very good.
Awesome. This is our next read in December. I'll send the email. This is what quite interesting. It's a different book, slightly different. Will shake you up a bit. So that's our next book that we'll be reading. So I'll send out an email as to when.
Okay, look forward to it.
Awesome. Last words from you before you go, Mr. Makato. Last words.
No, nothing much. Thanks for inviting me. Great talk.
Awesome. Thanks. Dorcas, last words.
No, thank you for the discussion. And I'm gonna read the book again for places where I didn't understand. And yeah, it means there's hope, but the hope also comes with caution. And yeah, but thank you. I think I'm fine.
Awesome.
I will find the end. It's fine.
Okay. All
But
right.
thank you.
All right. Awesome. Shama, last words.
Right. So I will go and buy the book, hopefully this weekend, purely because I'm triggered. When I think it's Medwalkers was talking about the mining thing, you know, us and the diamonds that we produce here in Botswana that are not even our diamonds. So that's very triggering for me. So I'll go and get the book purely because I'm also just very interested in really learning about Africa. And, you know, I can't be an African and know nothing about Africa. And everyone is welcome to Botswana. There are even cheaper buses. Intercape is way cheaper than
Oh,
800 rand. Yes.
oh.
It's
No, no.
like,
Yeah.
right?
No, I was saying that is Disney.
Yeah, so Intercape is even way cheaper, like 350 maybe for a return trip, honestly. And our borders are opening next week. So ready. COVID is going wild here, but we are ready.
Okay. All right.
I thank
Thanks.
you, Dr. Roche, and everyone for the review. So I'll definitely get the book and definitely read it.
Awesome. Thanks, Shama. Mr. Tinene, last word.
I seem to be getting invites to Botswana. But yeah, I heard it's like 360, 340 from Joburg to Botswana, of which is drivable. I thought it was quite far, so I'll make a plan, definitely. I'll make a plan.
From
And
Joburg to Bokoni is maybe 3.5, 4 hours. So it's actually shorter to drive from here to Gaborone than to drive from here to Durban.
yes, that's what I heard. So yeah, I'll definitely make a plan. I've already made a contact there. So yeah. And yes, thank you for the platform. It was an eye opener on some of the questions I had about African business. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Another book to consider if you want to go deeper is this one, The Next Factory of the World, How Chinese Investment is Reshaping Africa.
Ari,
Ari Yuan Sim. She also
which
works
I
for me. She also works for McKinsey. So she works with Acha. So they actually even refer to her in the book, in this book, Africa's Revolution. So it's something to also look into as well if you have extra time. But our next book review is what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. I've started reading it, and it's quite interesting. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your views about it. So get it. Exclusive books. It's not that big of a read, 100 pages. So just be careful. If you get it sooner, we'll be able to finish it sooner. So please
okay.
get it done. Remember, guys, we're not, the next review is in 3 weeks' time. So it's not like 4 weeks as we usually do. So it's in 3 weeks' time. So try and get it. It's available as a exclusive book. If they don't have it, ask them where you can, each exclusive book you can find and go there. Thank you so much for your time and your generosity to be here, to open up, to share. So yeah, see you next time.
Thanks, Doc.
Awesome.
Thank you. Good night.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.